10, 12, 13. 35, 38 participants, 40, 44. So hi, everyone. We are going to give 2 minutes so that everybody has time to join. That's 64 right now, 65 participants. $80. Oh, well, that's a good number. So 1 more minute and we get going. '94. Okay, we have 100 people and it's 2:02 Eastern time. So maybe we get started then. Well, thank you everyone for making it to the presentation. Our goal here is to share an issue that we repeatedly see among our MEP contractor clients, something that we have called the triangle of death. And it's really about the communication breakdowns that typically happens between the VDC team, the fab shop, and the field. We thought a triangle of death was as a good name. It's used for different things, but one of it is, this section of your face that includes your nose until the edges of your mouth. And any time you get an infection there, it's really dangerous because it can go directly to your brain. And that's not a good place to be. So we thought it would be a good title for this topic. So Bruna and Ivan will bring up a few very pragmatic samples and tips to solve this. Well, Ivan, he's part of the VDC team at Dynaelectric. Dynaelectric Companies is an electrical contractor, wholly owned subsidiary of the EMCO Group. The EMCO Group is one of the top, I think, top 3 among the ENR 100 mechanical electrical contractors. Dyna is a multidisciplinary electrical firm that has in-house expertise from planning, prefab, construct, and install. And then going to Bruna and myself, I'm Axel Kruger, and we're both part of ENG. We are a BIM company. We basically help MEP contractors acting as their VDC department, augmenting their in-house VDC by modeling, coordination, prefab, and install deliverables. We're about a little over 500 people right now. Been doing this for quite some time, and we are pretty much spread out across 15 different states. Been partnering with Dyna for a little over 3 years now. Our partnership has really become more than an extension of their VDC team, more of an integrated part of their virtual construction team. So Bruna and Ivan will be introducing themselves, and I really hope you enjoy this presentation. And one thing so that you keep in mind, and on the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a Q&A icon. You can go there and ask questions that we'll be addressing at the end of the presentation. So with this stage is yours.
All right, thanks, Axel.
Thank you.
I'll start by introducing myself. My name's Evan Bowman. I'm the VC Design Manager for Dynalectric Mission Critical. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I went through the JATC program here at Local 48. Was a journeyman, foreman. Then I kind of got into the VDC modeling. And the reason they pulled me in is because they wanted to have a person they could bring in from the field, do the modeling, and then when the modeling was no longer required, they were able to send me back in the field. That way they had a pool of resources to pull from. We've actually supplemented that kind of workflow with ENG. So they are basically our labor pool. When we need modelers, we can kind of ramp up and let them back to ENG when we don't need that help. But I kind of stuck around in the VC world because what I saw was a lot of miscommunication between the three main departments, the VC, the field teams, and the prefab. So I kind of stuck around, and I've been kind of working towards that, helping clear up that miscommunication. Bruna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Bruna. I'm an engineer. I have a post-graduation on project management, and I joined ENG 3 years ago, and I've been working with electrical projects since a long time ago as well. I started as a BIM modeler. Now I'm a job captain, and our business unit is specialized on electrical projects. And I usually have been working remote for a long time, but this year I got the chance to be in the site trailer with Dynalectric, and we were working from the site, and this was like a huge experience for me. We are gonna share a little bit about this, but yeah, basically this is me. Go ahead, Evan.
Yes, thanks, Bruna. Hey, you want to jump to the next slide? So we're going to talk our main topics of discussion here. I'm going to kind of identify some of the miscommunication we see between these three departments. Bruna is going to go into some of the ways that she helped clear up that miscommunication, both when she was remote and when she was on site. And I'm going to talk to everybody about a new role that we've been using here at Dyna that's really helped with that communication. Go ahead, bro. So what is the triangle of death? It's basically the lack of communication or the miscommunication between the field leadership, the virtual construction department, and the prefabrication shop. I can promise you that most of these companies that are on the call probably have these departments. And my question to you guys is how do you guys feel about the flow of this information being passed between it? We call it the triangle of death because a lot of the communication that's happening between that kind of just ends not very well, and it's almost like going in the Bermuda Triangle. So there's a lot of issues that kind of come arise with it. All right, go ahead, bro. So where is this breakdown in communication? Most of the reason that it happens is because the departments know what they're doing. The VC teams, the field teams, the prefab teams, they know their scope of work. They know it really, really well, but they lack the understanding of, or the challenges, or the operations of what the other departments are doing. They don't really speak all the same languages. You would think, field and prefab, they're speaking the same thing, but there's a whole level of manufacturing that goes into prefab. And with the VC teams, that's a whole new language. So when there's this breakdown, things don't go right. It creates some kind of rework. And when the rework happens, it's not the product each person was expecting. That blame game starts getting played. People are pointing fingers at each other. Go ahead, bro. So with virtual construction, I would say the biggest miscommunication they have there is that Revit is not an intuitive program. It's kind of difficult to understand, especially if you don't use it. So say if the field teams come up and they say, can you make a change to this drawing? I don't really quite understand it. And the person who's operating Revit starts listing off the complications that go with, having to change the visual graphics filters. All the field teams or the prefab teams here is that the answer is no, I can't do that for you. But it's more complicated than that. So they feel like, there's pushback on that, and there causes some communication there, miscommunication. Okay. With the field, I'd say the biggest thing is that the VDC teams are not in the live flow of the information. So I just had this happen on the job that I'm currently sitting at right now, running some underground ditches. We ran into a footing that we didn't really account for in the model, or you couldn't see it in the model. And all of a sudden, we need to change the routing. The field teams, if they don't have a good, path to the to the VC teams for communication, they might not know who to reach out to go make that change. But because I'm here on site, they went straight to me. Hey, this is an issue. We need to correct it. We need to change the drawings. We changed the drawings. We sent it right back out to the engineers that same day. That way, that flow of communication was so direct and fast. But a lot of those VC teams are not in that live flow, and that could cause a lot of miscommunication. Okay. With the prefab shops, I would definitely say it's because they don't get the whole job site context. So back to the underground example, if they need to change a rack because it's inconstructible or it's going to be hard to pick, and they make a change there at prefab, but they don't let the VC teams know, they don't let the field teams know. If we're planning for a rack that's been modified and we receive that and it won't fit because we didn't plan for that, all of a sudden you're going to have some issues with that. Okay. So how do we get from point A to point B? How do we get this concept or idea that we have and turn it into something physical and constructible? And this really hinges on all these departments to be talking together and coming up with the idea to make it into that. All these departments got to have a stake in that idea. That way they buy into it, because if they all have their input for it, they will all want to drive for it and want it to be successful. So how does this process work? As you can see here, there's a lot of steps that we need to go from point A to point B, all the way to get to that final product. And I'm kind of briefly going to walk you through, one prefab module that we've done at a site. And this is just one out of several that we might be doing on a particular site. So there's a lot of steps, a lot of talking to everyone in order to get this to work right. So first thing we do is we start with an engineer design. The layout is not optimized. It's design intent. And sorry if there's any engineering firms on the call. A lot of the content you guys produce, not very constructible. So we've got to take this idea and then turn it into something we can prefab off of, make constructible. This is where I like to start. I want to start with ideas from the field because it's going to be for the field. They are end user in the grand scheme of everything. And they have a lot of great ideas and concepts because they've had to make these installations before. So I always start with the field guys. We come up with ideas. We do some brainstorming. How can we make this better? Once we get that idea, when we are designing the concepts of it and digitalizing it, I want the field teams to be putting their input in. Doing that also gains that buy-in from them because they're putting their stake into what you're designing. They have input. They have their stake, they're going to buy into it and want to push for it. Plus, any questions that I might have are answered almost immediately. I don't need to write an email or anything to get that. Sorry, Bruna.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, once we get that concept and idea, we need to format it for someone else to install off of. And this is probably the hardest thing that the VC department does is we've got to take this 3D concept, this idea, and we got to turn it into a 2D format for everyone to understand. So there can be a lot of questions, maybe we missed a dimension. You can see on this drawing here, there's tons of dimension, tons of information. Can't always capture it all. These drawings and these concepts need to be reviewed by everyone, the prefab teams, the VC teams, and the field teams. That way everybody buys into it and everyone has their input and stake to it before it even starts getting built. And it's very good to review all that. So once we get to building it at prefab shop, people at prefab should always be in direct contact with both the VC teams and the field. Have weekly meetings about how it's going. That way questions get answered. Maybe there's a dimension missed again or something. And then if you can, take those teams and do a on-site visit so you can actually see this thing being constructed. You can physically touch it, make sure it's the way that you were anticipating it coming out. Before it comes to site, we always make sure that the layout is good with the installation we're going to make. So the field teams will verify that what we have here is good, it's going to fit, That way we don't have any unforeseen things show up. You know, maybe something got adjusted in the field and we didn't account for it. So we always want to make sure that this layout and installation is going to happen before this thing comes out. And here's our final product here. So we went from this design, this concept, turned it into something physical, brought it out to the field and installed it. And this is what we got. And we were able to even as built the conduits because we were on site as to what was coming in, any kind of changes they made. And we were able to incorporate that back into the model in a real-time as built. And that way we could get that information quickly. With real-time as builts, it's very important to have someone in that live flow of communication because it is way easier to do these as builts during construction than it is to do it after. And we're encountering that on some of the other sites too. We're having to do some scanning and capture what has been done because the as builts weren't happening in real time. If you can get those as builts and get it to the engineering firms, they will be able to incorporate your design if they liked it into the next phase. So what we're seeing here is, if you remember from the first drawing, they had all that equipment kind of scattered all over the wall. Now they've condensed it, they've taken an idea, and now they're designing to something that's a little more constructible, and they're already planning for it ahead of time. So it makes our job really, really easy going into the next phase. So it was really awesome for this site to be able to see, we came up with this idea and now here it is being implemented on the next phases. So it was really great. So Bruna's going to talk about some of the as-builts that she's done and some of the things that she got to see when she was remote versus when she came on site, and how clear that communication got for her with communicating with the field and the VC team. So go ahead, Bruna.
Thank you, Evan. Yes, as you were saying, from the virtual construction side, we work with many projects with different phases, and we need to adapt each phase to how we communicate, whether remotely or in person. I've been working remotely for a long time, but this year I get the chance to be in the field and engage with the project with a different perspective. We kept using digital platforms and collaborative tools with the rest of the VDC team, but I was also able to join face-to-face discussions, field meetings, and this gave me a big experience on how the field team and how the prefab team work and how they operate. Most of the time, we are not only taking care of a single scope. We have so many service types included that we can develop, 30 electrical templates and apply filters to different electrical deliverables. But down the road, we always receive new requirements. We have some project constraints, RFIs that we should change, and we need to be flexible and we need to adapt our model to this new scenario. And if we don't keep our communication and all this information clear, we can get lost with the variety of work that we take care of. And how can we do it? When it comes to choosing the right way to communicate, it depends on what do you need to share and who you want to share this information with. So we need to find the best transmission method to share this with our team. For example, if it's something quick or urgent, we can just have a call with the person, or maybe a feedback with a modeler, or sometimes it's just a quick reminder or a project update. By doing this, we can send a text message through Teams, and it's easy and straightforward. On the other hand, emails are good, but if we need to require official requests, or if we need to keep the record of all the conversation, and sometimes we are also dealing with complex topics, we need to brainstorm. For these situations, I like to have meetings with the entire team to have this group discussion and try to find a collaboration between all the ideas, and this also emphasizes that we are all in the same page. This topic is interesting. I brought here a few examples of markups that we've been working with, and I want you to take a look and see how do you feel and how would you work with some of these markups. Well, all of those are the challenging ones. And usually that's my face when I receive a markup like that, because it has it's difficult, guys. I need to be honest. Sometimes it doesn't have an orientation, or it doesn't come with a legend. We can know for sure which is the subparts they are going to use to install certain conduit. And Yeah, this makes the VDC world very challenging. But on the other hand, I also brought up like a really good example. This is one of the markups that we love to receive. It has a legend, it has pictures, it has descriptions, and even has the orientation of where the photo was taken. And sometimes they want to differentiate. This will be installed through the wall, or this will be through overhead systems. And I know that sometimes it takes time to develop a markup like that, but usually from our experience, it pays off if you consider the amount of time that you are going to save with rework or any missing information that the modeler is going to ask you again, and then you resend the markup. So usually when you spend more time preparing those kind of markups, it's really useful for the entire VDC team. I brought here a few other examples of tools that we've been using quite a lot. I know most of you know how to use Bluebeam Review, and I just want to emphasize a few practical examples of these usage. The layers is the first one. Usually, we have different service types, and you can split the task or the scope between different layers and assign each layer to a specific modeler. For example, one will take care of branch, other will go with lighting fixtures, and this is a good way to keep the work organized. Also, captures. This one it was from someone from the field that he showed me how to do it. Basically, you can add extra information to your PDFs, and you can show, for example, the overall structure, if there is a column you should avoid, or any site conditions that we should be aware. It's really useful. And the other one here is the flex. I think all of you might remember some contract documents that you receive and that have 200 pages that you need to take a look and you need to revisit every time. With the flex, it's simple to go straight to the page that you want. Sometimes you can highlight the panel schedule pages or the single line diagrams. And even for submittals, we have like 50 types of lighting fixtures. You can mark the red ones are slidings that should be revisited or we need to review in the model. And the green ones are good to go. It's already approved and it's matching with what they send in the submittals. The other one is the overlay pages. Sometimes you receive revisions, and I like the overlay option because you can have a nice visibility of the changes. And the last one that I brought it was Snagit. Snagit is it's a tool for high quality screenshots. And what I love about Snagit, it's because it keeps a library with all the records of your screenshots. And I can recall, for example, multiple coordination meetings that I had to take a lot of annotation, and I keep taking screenshots and adding bullet points. And through Snagit, I can just revisit these in a good way, and it keeps everything organized per date, per type of file. So it's really nice. On this item here, I want to bring an example of how important it is to keep this direct communication with the field and how being on the site helps you find this common language. For the prefabrication process, for example, we usually try to find models that can be replicated through different regions. And this picture here shows a conduit kick. And us from the modeling side, we can maybe detail this element and call it CDNT level 2 type 1. And we know what it is, we know how many types we have in the model. But after a conversation with the field, we came up with an idea. Okay, what if we call these elements KL6? That means it is a kick that turns to the left, and we have 6 inches for the rise dimension. By doing this, it's much easier for the guys installing these elements to identify which is their scope, where do we belong, instead of a CD and TL2 type 1. So this gets much more intuitive, and it's a nomenclature that is field-oriented. When sharing with the information with the VDC team, I really like to divide the scope with different models and to try to compile all this information in a single file. We've been using Smartsheet a lot, and it's good because you can add attachments, descriptions, even comments, and you can set up priority for each task. And this has been great because all the modelers can revisit this file and update their status as well. as a work in progress task or it's ready for review. And yes, another tip that I brought here is just because sometimes it's really important to set up this initial area of work. I know sometimes we have huge data centers with 30 areas, and if you first have a call with the modeler to review the first region and maybe have catch-up calls to check their progress regular, that also saves a lot of time because you can uh, make sure that he's up with the queries that he has and he can like go straight to you and make sure it's all clear and he can keep going having the same quality and queries that you require for the rest of the building. So yes, I really recommend having regular catch-up calls. And for keeping the work organized, we need to have a consistent folder structure. For example, with the VDC world, we have drawings that are ready for review. We have drawings that are ready for prefab or ready for installation. Even drawings that are after the RFI changes, we need to as-build it and make sure that the changes are covered. And it's good to have these organized in a proper folder structure because if not, you can also get lost with all the revisions, all the updates. And we also use Smartsheet to keep that record because the GF or someone from the prefab team, they can go straight to the task, revisit the drawing and make sure that he approved it or not. And then we can pick this with the affected with the affected changes, and we can then save the drawing in the right path. This item here, this is where we think that real-time communication brings a lot of valuable input, which is the as-built changes. These pictures here show an area full of branch conduits. It's a GSN room. And from being on the site, we have this advantage that sometimes we need information from the field and they might be busy taking care of other scopes and maybe revisiting another, reviewing another area. But being in the field, you can also help them with these updates, with those changes. Sometimes I can go straight to that room and check, okay, this is matching with the Navis. This is what I have in the Revit model. Does it match with all the drawings that we have? And this allows us real-time monitoring through these field walks. So this also helps us a lot with the as-built deliverables. And the last item here is about providing feedback. Feedback is essential because it allows growth for all the departments. And I know sometimes we provide a lot of feedback between our own teams. We have some modeling practice that we can develop, but I also think it's very important to share the information and share feedback with the other departments as well. For example, the field teams, the prefab teams. Being there, you can talk directly with each of them, even if it's the PM, the superintendent, or the guys installing the certain areas. We can check how are their thoughts, what are ideas that they have for improvements, and we can also provide help with any systems that they want to learn how it's used. So definitely feedback, it's really important. And if you are in the field, you can do it with like multiple departments and all focus on the same goal. Yes, do you want to go ahead, Evan?
Sure. Thanks, Brew. So yeah, as you guys could tell, she was remote, doing all of her work remotely, and it was difficult for her to understand a lot of the markups that she was getting. But when she came on site, when she came to the field, she was able to clear up those things because the communication there was instant with the field teams, the prefab teams. Any questions she might have were answered almost immediately. And she was also able to help develop new strategies. So this kind of brings us back to the triangle of death. We've got our field leadership, the VC teams, prefab teams, they all know what they're doing, but the way that they function, they all hinge on communication between each other. And that information needs to be shared, but no one's really kind of figuring out how to share that information because we're all kind of speaking a different language, right? So what is the flow of your information right now? Are you going from the field to the prefab shop to the VC, then back out? Are you going the other way? Or are you between the field shop and the VC teams just coming up with ideas and then pushing them down to the field saying, hey, this is what we came up with. This is what you have to install. there's no right answer to anyone, but everyone kind of is trying to figure out this triangle of death and how to make this information flow. Go ahead, bro. What I saw most people trying to do is bring these teams really close together, kind of tuck them in tight, put them in the same room. That way they're going to talk to each other, right? Wasn't really the case solving that issue, because if you go to the next slide, bro, when you bring these teams together and they're all trying to turn one way, what they're going to do is bind up. They've got a lot of strong personalities who are leading these teams. They have an idea of how they want to do it, but they're only speaking their language. The VC guys are only kind of speaking VC world. Field guys speaking field lingo. There was not uniformity about how the flow of information should go between them. So got together, they kind of just all bound out. We didn't really make much progress. Go ahead, bro. But what I did see was some common ground here that was kind of missing, this communication gap right here. There was some kind of piece missing to help everyone understand what the other person was doing. Go ahead. This communication gap here was kind of this necessary moment where, we're trying to figure out what it was. It was not, a different department that needed to be in here to have everyone talking. We couldn't really do it through software, and then a spreadsheet didn't really work either to get this communication, kind of the smart sheet that you saw with Bruna. There was really no mechanical or digital means of doing it. What I found the best to actually solve that problem was a person, someone like you or me or anyone in the field that can help gain that information, that knowledge between everyone, and help distribute that information. That way, that communication and that flow of information is now being done internally between the communication gap there. Doesn't flow on the exterior, it's between everything. So go ahead and go to the next one, bro. So if you bring all these cogs together, now you've got one entity, essentially one person, turning all the gears together uniformly. That way the flow of information isn't going to the field to VC and prefab. It's going through the on-site coordinator. Both the prefab teams and the VDC teams know about it, and so forth and so forth. So I can't really draw a line, but think of drawing a line going in the field to the on-site, to the VC, back to on-site, prefab, and all the way back up. This person was able to provide a lot of clarity and really enhance the construction project that was going on. Okay. This position, though, is very difficult to fill because this person needs to have field experience, prefab experience, and then learn all the ins and outs of BIM workflows. And like I said earlier, Revit is not an easy software. It's complicated. So finding someone in that has all these qualifications, pretty difficult to have. If you guys know one, we're looking for one. I'm sure everyone else is. So go ahead and let us know. ENG really can help kind of facilitate this coordination role, because you can take, someone who doesn't know all those VC things, but has all the other experience, and you can get them trained up with ENG, to learn these workflows. When Bruna came on site, she helped teach me and some of the other people working with us. And I've been working with Bruna for 3 years. She has taught me a ton of things that I just didn't know in Revit. And all the ENG people that have worked for me have always taught me something, because if you've worked in Revit, there's always something to learn. There's always something new. So ENG can really help facilitate this role if you're looking to go this route. In the long term, though, this role should grow organically. It can't be a plug and play, all of a sudden we've got this guy, we want to implement him in this role. You're not going to see results immediately, and it's not going to just be all of a sudden this is the change all. This position needs to grow within, and you got to find someone who is a problem solver, is good at communication, and is pretty adaptable to situations you're going to have. They need to develop and cultivate these relationships and understand how the workflow is between these departments before you can really start to see change and progress that you're looking for. I always feel like you should take a field leader, train them in BIM, and then slowly integrate them back into the field and these prefab environments so they can start gaining their relationships with everyone and building that strength. So I think that's all I have. So I think we're going to open up for Q&A. Actually, you want to lead the Q&A?
Sure. Well, thank you for the presentation, guys. So I have a few questions, and I encourage everybody else that wants to add questions. Again, there is a little icon on the bottom that says Q&A. So, like, for example, first one here is how long does it take to train someone for such a role?
I'll take that one. It's a long time. And I'm not saying a long time, but you need, like I said, you need to develop those relationships and cultivate something and learn all together. It's not just going to be someone. So when I take on a person to train for this position, I would say they won't be comfortable in this role until about a year after them working, side by side with me or someone else that works for me, understanding what they're doing, learning Revit, learning how to communicate. And I would say in 2 years, that person is probably ready for their own job site to handle and manage. So I would say 1 year to be very effective and 2 years to be on their own.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivan. So another one that I have here, regarding communication strategies, what do you consider must do and must not?
I can help with that one. So a few ones that I think are a must do, it's fluid communication. I know sometimes the companies have different organizations or structures to deal with the information, but from our side and from our experience, and this is how ENG has been operating, we can have this direct communication with everyone, and everyone can help each other. Sometimes we have a question, and it's not only for the field leader or for the VDC dealer to help you with. We can keep this communication fluid. And also, I did mention the catch-up calls. I think they also help a lot because sometimes you have a question and you might need to wait 4 days to get the answer for that if it's a weekly meeting. But with constant catch-up calls, you can call the person from the same time at the same time and go straight to your question, and this will give you the input that you need to finish the modeling for a region, for example. And for the must not, I do remember sometimes, depending on the project, they might ask you to register or monitor the information through different separate files. You have the smart sheet, you have ClickUp, and you have like 4 or 5 tools that you need to register the information. I think whenever you can, it's good to compile all this information in a single document because it's easier to keep track and you don't need to update different tools at the same time. You can keep the same one. And sometimes we need to rethink which is really important to register and to monitor because sometimes to document something, to register all the information, it takes time. For example, providing the markups. But if you can come up with a combined shared folder where everything is traced there, and if you want to revisit the document, it's there. It also saves a lot of time, and it's very effective in the end.
Okay, thank you, Bruna. So my 5 cents there, the must do and must not is must is direct communication, must not is middlemen. No middlemen, hopefully. That's sort of our golden rule at ENG. So next one here, what are your thoughts on a VDC designer being trained in the field to be the on-site coordinator?
I'll take that one because I've done that as well. And it has its pros and cons. The environment in a work construction site is a lot different than in the office. And if you're not accustomed to that personality, I think that's where the biggest challenges you would have. So when Bruna came on site, she was a little shocked at that my language and my disposition is a little different than it is in the trailer than it is on when I'm on a virtual call or something like that. There is a different atmosphere in a construction trailer, and if you don't find the right person who is a VD designer that could be accustomed to that, that's probably where you're going to have the biggest complication. The other thing is that they're not electricians, and there's a lot of calls we make when we're doing this designing that someone who has installed this stuff would know to make. This person who has never installed these things can't really come up with constructability as well as someone who has experience doing it. So that's the other downside to having just a VD designer come and do that coordination is they're going to be asking a lot more questions than someone who is an electrician.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivan. So there is one for Bruna specifically here. Bruna, what was your biggest shocking fact or misconception you found out you had when you got to see all the real life on site?
That's interesting.
Maybe,
I feel
maybe even speaking.
that's one of them, but you got used to it. So sometimes after some time, yeah, you get to know how they communicate with you. But something that I found interesting is because, for example, here, from the remote side, you have a lot of things to take care. But in the field, I feel you need to multiply it by 12 because everything is in a fast pace and they want this maybe for tomorrow and then they receive new requirements and something is more urgent and you need to have this balance to deal with the multiple requirements. Also dealing with different people. We have GFs that are more straightforward and they prefer to go to your table and revisit this document through the computer. Other guys, they like to go with you in the site and just check the room and show you how they like to install something. And I think the communication, it was like a good learning experience for me because you need to understand for each specific person how is the best way to share the information with him or with her, and in the same time pick this information that was shared and transmit to the rest of the VDC team. That's, I think that's the main one.
Thank you, Brew. We have another one here, and probably we have time for one or two more. What could be the advantage of using the Otis construction cloud for this communications between the on-site coordinator and the VDC department?
I'll take this one too because I've tried it, and I would say the ACC cloud isn't quite there yet. It's obviously borrowing from Plannerly, or maybe they bought them out. It's just not quite there with everything they need. Plus, the field teams aren't very wrapped into this world. You would really need that on-site coordinator to come from a VC background and then communicating that back out to the field. So there are advantages there, but as far as the structure that you saw with Bruna, with the review of drawings, with the GFs, there wasn't that much, I don't know, level of being able to manipulate it to what we needed to be. It was basically, this is standard out of the box, this is how you're going to use it, but it didn't capture everything we needed to accomplish. So that's why we didn't use something like that. I've tried it though, and I would say it's, I want to see how it plays out in a couple of years. I would love to get that where it was one uniform environment that everyone was using, but it's still relatively new and I think it still needs some work.
Awesome. So I have another one here. Yeah, I guess we have a time for one more, and is how does Dyna assure the same processes follow and standardized nationwide? Or maybe kind of variation of that question, I guess, is, are you guys standardizing this nationwide?
That is a fantastic question. And the simple answer is no. This is what I'm doing with mission critical projects. It doesn't represent what Dyna does as a whole. It doesn't represent what MCore does as a whole. We have standard templates, which I love to see, and it's great that we have those, a standard template for our Revit models. But the way we approach a project is different because each project is a little different every time we tackle it. There are certain limitations that we have on each project. Sometimes there's higher demand for one thing than there is for another thing. So there is really no standardization. The only standardization that we really have is we've got this VC template and we've got a person running the on-site VC who is helping the field teams come to a conceptual idea of how they want to install it and helping them with their prefab. That is the only thing that we have standardized, I say, within the mission critical world. So that's a great question. I wouldn't say it's applicable for everyone, but I think it's something that if you are struggling with that communication, it's a path to pursue.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivan. So we still have a bunch of questions, but we run out of time. So I would encourage everybody to feel free to contact us if and happy to answer them offline. So thank you much, everybody, for being here, and Ivan and Brew, excellent presentation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all for attending. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. Thank you. Bye-bye.